Hi, this is Jordan Bleckert. This is my response video for Module 9. It is on Glennon Melton Doyle and her case study. So here it goes. Glennon Melton Doyle is a very encouraging and inspirational speaker and author. She's very open about her recovery from both bulimia and from addictions to drugs and alcohol. Glennon's disordered eating began when she was 8 years old, and her drinking and her drug behavior started, it followed in college. She describes her beginning with bulimia as starting because she felt very awkward going into the world as an 8-year-old girl when she felt like everybody else had everything so well put together. She described herself as oily, pudgy, and conspicuous going into school. She described herself as a loser in a world of superheroes. So clearly, I think this has to do with a lack of self-esteem. I think that was probably the start of her eating disorder behaviors, as it often is with eating disorders. Glennon describes herself and other addicts as not being insensitive liars, but instead being extremely sensitive truth tellers. I think this is very important because when you're sensitive, you feel everything very deeply, and it can be easy to get hurt. Being sensitive means being easily affected by the very smallest things. This is where addiction comes in, because with eating disorders, drugs, and alcohol, they numb out those intense feelings. Glennon states that with drugs, alcohol, and food, we tell the truth and say that I'm not fine when the whole world is telling us to say that we're fine. Glennon explains that when she felt overwhelmed with life stressors, she would simply binge and purge, and then afterwards she felt so numb that she never really had to go back to deal with the things that she was trying to avoid to begin with. She states that in high school, she had to pretend to be some confident version of herself, but it was all a lie. She stated that pretending was a matter of survival. Then she goes on to explain how she was put in a mental hospital her senior year of high school, and how she was finally in a place where the world made sense. She felt like in the hospital she didn't have to pretend anymore, and that she learned very many valuable lessons in the mental hospital. After high school, Glennon went to college, and she continued to binge and purge every day, and she also began to drink and use drugs. This continued throughout college, but she managed to graduate, and 1 year after graduation, she found herself pregnant, and she decided to get sober. She describes getting sober as recovering from frostbite, where the numbing passes and you have to feel all the pain before it gets better. She states that she got sober but still felt all those low thoughts about herself until one day she accepted that sensitive was just how she was, and it was okay to feel all of her feelings. I think the theoretical perspective most useful for understanding Glennon's addictions is cognitive theory. In cognitive theory, thoughts determine behaviors, and Glennon, as I said before, had a lot of negative thoughts. As I stated, I think that the primary consideration that caused Glennon's bulimia was her low self-esteem. Glennon thought negative thoughts about herself and used binging and purging to cope with the thoughts and the feelings. Then in college, Glennon's heightened sensitivity also came with a lot of negative thoughts and feelings, and she began using alcohol and drugs to cope with those feelings as well. Another perspective that I think was not directly discussed by Glennon, but probably had an impact on her addictions, was social learning theory. Because college is packed with alcohol and drug use, and considering that Glennon didn't start using drugs and alcohol until college, it is safe to assume that once she got to her university and she became exposed to drinking and drug use, she actually started beginning to use herself. So in this sense, it is likely that Glennon succumbed to peer pressure to begin her alcohol and her drug use, and those things became a habit. In addition to this, her purging could have also been inspired by social learning theory, because society presents unrealistic thinness in the media. And even though the binging was most likely caused by cognitive and emotional factors, the purging could have been caused by societal pressure. Overall, I feel like Glennon came a very long way in her recovery, and I think that she presents as an excellent example to those struggling with eating disorders and addictions. Thank you very much.